Welcome back. We've just normalized all of our dialogue so it comes in at roughly the same level. And now what we're going to do is add a couple filters to our dialogue to level it out just a little more. Make sure that it's easy to hear over other things because your dialogue is generally the more important part of your sound. So the way that we're going to add these filters is with a bus. Now, a bus is basically a special track inside of our mixer here where you can route other tracks to. It's kind of like grouping tracks. And so all of our dialogue tracks are going to go into a bus. And that bus will let us both add filters to everything all at once, control everything all at once, but we can also export them later if we need to as a group. So in the Fairlight page, up here in the Fairlight menu, let's go to bus format. This will bring up our bus format window, and we're going to add a bus down here. Let's hit add. This will be a stereo bus, and we're going to call this dialogue bus. This bus 1, this is our main. That's our main output. That's kind of the default thing everything is sent to. But the dialogue bus is just going to take our dialogue, and then we're going to take the dialogue bus and put that out to the main. Basically, all of our dialogue runs through this dialogue bus before it gets to the main output. So let's hit OK. And now over here in our mixer, if we grab the edge and pull this over, we have all of our tracks and buses. We actually have even more tracks than we're able to see in our mixer. You can see how this is getting crazy already, right? So bus 2 is our dialogue bus. And we're going to route our dialogue tracks to our dialogue bus. So right here where this says bus outputs for our tracks, here we have dialogue Sarah, dialogue Nathan, all the ones that start with DIA, we're going to not go to the main. So we'll just mouse over main and hit X, and then hit add dialogue bus right here on all of these. So anything that says dialogue goes to the dialogue bus, and then the dialogue bus goes to main. So now, anytime that we have dialogue happening, we'll be able to see it bouncing here in the bus.
And a second ago, I thought that's what I wanted.
And if we mute the bus, it mutes all of the dialogue. So this is a great way for us to control things kind of all at once. So let's add a filter to our dialogue. What we really want to do is make sure that this dialogue is punchy and you can hear it really well over everything else. It's not necessarily the most loud, but it is the most powerful. So a way to do that is with the dynamics panel, which you can get to in your mixer. Here, right by where it says dynamics, there's kind of this 4 square little icon thing. And we'll double click on this for the dialogue bus. And that will bring up our dynamics panel. Now, this dynamics panel is, I think, one of the most powerful things in Fairlight because you have so much control over how your sound works. And there's a lot to go over. We're not going to go over everything in this training, but we are going to hit the main things that we need to make our movie sound good. One of them is going to be the compressor. A compressor, what that does is it basically takes the loudest parts of something and kind of squishes it down. So anything that's peaking that's like a little bit louder than everything else, it kind of just turns down so that things are leveled out a little more. And then after you do that, you can boost everything up. So what essentially happens is the quieter parts get louder and the louder parts get quieter and everything kind of balances out a little more. It's sort of an automatic version of what we were doing before, but it's a little more detailed and it does it for like every single part instead of the kind of big phrases like we were doing. So let's zoom in here just so we can see what's going on. And I'm just going to solo our dialogue tracks here. And let's have a listen.
I don't know what happened, but one minute you were here, and then you weren't, and now you are.
So nothing's really happening because we don't have any of our plugins turned on here. So if we turn on our compressor, what this is going to do is anything that is over 15 decibels is going to be turned down. And this ratio is basically how much you turn it down. So if you push this way up, it's going to squish things down really harshly. So if something is negative 14 decibels, it's turning it down so it's like negative 14.9. you know, so it's only just a touch louder instead of a lot louder. So let's keep this ratio, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4, and let's see how that sounds.
I don't know what happened, but one minute you were here, and then you weren't, and now you are.
So right now, this isn't really doing a whole lot, because what it's doing is taking anything that's over 15 decibels, which only really happens sometimes. Our peaks are at -12, but that's just the peaks. And so
What happened, but one minute you were here.
when she says 1 minute,
What happened, but one minute you were here.
you can see that this turns it down just a touch right here. And I can tell because under here where it says gain reduction in this middle part right here, there's a little blue bar that shows up. If we turn our threshold all the way down, like really far down,
What happened, but one minute you were here.
it's turning stuff down. If anything gets over -37,
What happened, but one minute you were here.
it's turning a lot of stuff down, right? So it's really important that we set that threshold to the point where it's like just above like the median kind of part. Like if most things are around -20, we'd set this to like -19 or something so that it turns down the really loud parts and it doesn't really mess with the parts that sound good already, right? Let's take this down. So the general idea is you want to play this back and just bring down your threshold until it starts to reduce things where it's loud and not reduce things where it's not loud. So
Okay.
I don't know what happened, but one minute you were here, and then you weren't, and now you are. This thing, it altered things somehow. I don't know, but
You know, there's
all right, this -20 I think is probably a good move
there's this funny little theory about the Mobius.
because we're
It's
not
a
turning it down
twist
most of
in
the time.
fabric of space.
But when things kind of pop out a little bit, when he says twist, it turns it down for just a second.
Twist in the fabric of space where time becomes a loop, and
And so this is really just taming down those kind of wild.
a twist in. What are you doing? If you leave it here,
someone else will find it.
It's really just kind of taming those little wild parts. Now we turn things down a little bit. So let's take a look at our output and see where that is.
Okay?
I don't know what happened, but one minute you were here, and then you weren't, and now you are. This thing, it altered things somehow. I don't know.
It seems like it's making stuff a little bit quieter. So we could probably boost this up maybe 3 dB or so.
What happened, but one minute you were here, and then you weren't, and now you are. This thing, it altered things somehow. I don't know, but
You know, there's this funny little theory about the Mobius. It's
All right. So now we have all of our audio somewhat leveled, and then we're bringing it into our compressor. And anytime something goes over like -21 dB, we're making it 3.5 times quieter, basically. So it's just kind of squishing stuff down a little bit to where the loudest parts aren't that much louder than the quieter parts. And then we're bringing that whole level up 3 decibels.
but one minute you were here, and then you weren't, and now you are. This thing, it altered things somehow. I don't know, but
You know, there's this funny little theory about
Now we have our compressor on everything that's dialogue. And we should definitely check.
wait. No.
Check to make sure that nothing sounds weird, especially under the compressor because it does kind of boost things up a little more, but I think it's okay. You can also do the same thing on your bus with a EQ. So let's double click on this EQ. It's good to know it's here because you can EQ your dialogue. And let's say you have a mic that you don't like the low end on or something. You can kind of mess with that and adjust things with the equalizer. Now, if you don't know what an equalizer is, it's kind of like our color histogram, sort of. It's a graph of the volume on the y-axis and the frequency on the x-axis. So basically stuff to the right is higher pitched, stuff on the left is lower pitched. And you can mess with this line to boost or reduce different frequencies within the bus. So if I want all my dialogue to
funny little theory
sound a little
about
different.
the Mobius. It's a twist in the fabric of space where time becomes a loop, and unfortunately for you, you just happen to be stuck in one of those times.
A twist in. What are you doing?
And so if there are any problems, you can fix those here and you can kind of change the shape of that sound.
Twist in the fabric of space where time.
The only thing I think we'll do is just take a little bit of the low end out, just because it makes things come through a little bit clearer. So I'm going to turn on band 1, and we'll take band 1 and we'll just push this over. And really, we're just going to do this until we start to notice it. I'll do this soloed.
You know what happened? One minute you were here, and then you weren't, and now you are. This thing, it altered things somehow. I don't know, but
You know, there's this funny little theory about the Mobius. It's a twist in the fabric of space where time becomes a loop.
Okay. So all I've done is just move that band over to get rid of the lower frequencies here. It's something where it can kind of seem boomy, and things will build up and be really, really boomy if you don't kind of take this stuff out. And if you can't hear it anyway, it just kind of cleans up the mix in a way that you wouldn't necessarily notice like right offhand. But when you have a bunch of tracks together, those kind of wild frequencies can kind of build up.
Funny little theory about the Mobius. It's a twist in the fabric of space where time
And we maybe went a little crazy.
becomes a loop. And unfortunately for you, you just happen to be stuck in one of those times.
So we'll just take some of that out. And there's the work on our dialogue bus.